when we get to 5:30, if you want to count to 5 after that, and I'll start now.
Go ahead.
All right, here we go, starting.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the West Fargo City Commission meeting for Monday, January 4th. Pleased that you'd join us. The first order of business is a pledge allegiance to the flag. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item B on the agenda is to approve the order of the agenda. Commissioners, do you have any additions or corrections, suggestions for the modification of the agenda? It has been presented and published.
I guess I don't know if this needs to be an addition or if it can go under non-agenda, but I think we need to continue our discussion on the homes on Cheyenne Street tonight.
Okay, I have,
I actually have that underneath my administrator's report for discussion, if that works for the commission.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisk. Thank you, Commissioner George. Is that acceptable to you, Commissioner?
That's fine with me.
Okay, very good. Is there any additions or corrections to the order of the agenda?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner George seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the order of the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C on our agenda is the approval of the minutes of December 21st. The minutes have been distributed and are in your packets.
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the December 21st meeting of 2020. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval of the minutes of December 21st, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. Item C is the building permits. The building permits have been distributed and are in your packets. Do you have any questions of Mr. Solberg with regard to the building permit report?
I would make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Olson seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the building permit report dated January 4th as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next order of business is the consent agenda. We have two items, the bills, which is pages 6 through 14, and B is a request to carry over personal leave for several officers of the West Fargo Police Department, pages 15 to 16. What is your pleasure, Commissioners?
I'd make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner George. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Commissioner Simmons seconds. Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as items A and B as presented. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to the regular agenda. Item number 1 is a discussion regarding the COVID staff vaccinations. We'd call on Chief of Police Dennis Otterness and Fire Chief Dan Fuller. Gentlemen?
Thank you, Commission President Dardis. I guess I'll start first. And Commissioners, just a real brief update on behalf of the Police Department. We were notified last week that Fargo Cass Public Health had some vaccinations available for the Police Department, and I'm happy to report that as of the 31st of December, 29 members of my staff, that includes sworn officers and civilians, were able to get vaccinated with the first round of COVID vaccination. So, and I'm also being told that we're in line to receive 5 additional doses of vaccine for this week. And we don't know, there's a possibility that there may be more in the coming days and coming weeks, but as of now, it stands that we'll have 29 as of last week, and with an additional 5 members of our staff that will get vaccinated this week, later in the week. And I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Questions for Chief Honorist?
I just have a quick question. With your staff, is it voluntary or mandatory that they get the vaccination?
At this point, it's voluntary, highly recommended, but remains voluntary with some work that I know we've been back and forth with our Human Resources Department, both myself and Chief Fuller, on some guidelines as we move forward if some of our employees opt not to be vaccinated, but we hope that a majority of the, at least I can speak for my staff, that we're strongly encouraging and recommending that people get vaccinated, and hopeful that everybody will do that.
Thank you.
Additional questions for Chief Honorist? Chief Fuller.
Good evening, Commission President Dardis, members of the Commission. Report from the Fire Department. We have 85% of our staff inoculated. We had 56 over 2 days, December 23rd and December 29th. We have a fairly good chance of receiving a couple more doses as some of our personnel come back from military activations, but they should be receiving those doses at their deployment sites also. So it's been a really good turnout for us. We're very happy with the way that Fargo Public Health has rolled it out and was able to get us in right away before the holidays with the majority of our vaccinations. So, and as far as Commissioner George, your question, the Fire Department, we are not making it mandatory. We do anticipate, however, those of our firefighters who have an EMS licensure will end up having to get it at some point when they add it to the vaccination list for the National Registry. So we'll see when that plays out. But that's our update. I'll answer any questions anyone has.
Questions for Chief Fuller?
One more quick question, I guess this would be for both of you. Has anybody on either of your staff had any issues with the vaccination at this point?
Nope. We've had the run-of-the-mill sore arms and maybe a couple of short-term fevers, but no one's had any real side effects.
Thank you.
That's really been the same with the police department as well. Some tenderness and soreness around the injection site, and some mild chills and fevers, things like that. Just and the same with Chief Fuller, the run-of-the-mill symptoms. But other than that, everybody's been fine.
Thank you.
Additional questions for either of the chiefs? Thank you, gentlemen, for the report. Moving on to the regular agenda, item number 2 is to approve the engineer's report and direct the engineer to prepare plans and specifications for sewer, water, storm, and street improvements for District 1315.2. There are pages 17 through 41 in your packet.
Thank you, Commission President Dardis, members of the Commission. Tonight you have in your packet an engineer's report for the Westview 3rd Edition improvements that were requested by the developer, Jason Ide. In your packet, along with the engineer's report, you can see there is a capital improvement plan summary sheet, as well as the construction estimate prepared by Moore Engineering, and estimated total assessments for the proposed improvements. And as you can see, the total project cost is estimated to be $540,000. Based on our current preliminary assessment analysis, average assessments for each lot will range from $27,000 to $31,000. The City Commission approved the assessment district back at its meeting on December 7th, and tonight we are asking the commission to approve the engineer's report and direct the engineer to prepare plans and specifications. So that I will stop and ask if there are any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. I have one question. I sat in on this review. Has the developer, has Jason I had been visited with about the assessment that's of what you set up? What it would cost per lot? Has that discussion taken place?
My understanding was that Moore Engineering was going to reach out and confirm that conversation with the developer. I have not personally spoke with him, so I would ask, he may be attending the meeting today. He might be able to raise his hand and answer to that.
Okay, I'd call on Melissa Richard, Director of Communication. Do we have anybody joining us on this topic, Melissa?
Yes, Jason Ide is on the call, and I've just opened up your ability to speak. Jason.
Thank you. Yes, Moore Engineering has reached out, and I've seen the report, same report that you're looking at, and even though the number is higher than I prefer to try to sell, I want to be able to add some more additional homes to the city of West Fargo.
Are there any questions for Mr. Ide? Thank you for joining us this evening, Mr. Ide, and we welcome you building more homes in the city of West Fargo. So are there any other questions for Mr. Scott? Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
I'll make
I
the
make
motion to approve
the engineer's report.
Okay, that's Commissioner Simmons, I believe. Is there a second?
It was. Did Commissioner Olson say something too?
We were in concert there, so
Is there
I'll yield to you.
And
Okay.
Commissioner Olson, do I have a second?
Yes.
Thank you. It's been moved that we approve the engineer's report and direct the engineer to prepare plans and specifications for the sewer, water, storm, and sewer improvements for District 1315.2 at the Westview addition. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by, again, I want to clarify, this is a request of the developer, okay? To be assessed to the lots, the 18 lots, Mr. Scott, can I have a nod of your head? Is it 18 lots? Is that right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right, 18 lots. All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor of signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes on a 4-to-1 vote. Thank you. Item number 3, City Administrator's Report. Mrs. Fisk.
Good evening, Commissioners. I have 3 items listed there, and then I have a couple other items that I just want to draw to your attention real quickly that I'll just mention when we're done with these items. The first one is, at the last commission meeting, you gave us permission to proceed with the purchase of the 5 properties along Cheyenne Street. And at this time, I want Lauren Orchard, our Economic Development Director, and John Shockley, our City Attorney, to give you some information on the next steps that are intended to be taken.
Thank you, Tina. Good evening, Commissioners. So just as a general recap of where we think we will be heading at this stage, currently I have plans to meet with each of the 5 property owners to discuss with them their unique needs as they consider moving out. The purchase price itself would not be negotiable based on what was approved at our last meeting, but things like the actual move-out date or the items they can take with them out of the homes, those are all things that we could address on an individual basis with each property owner. And so my current plan is to meet with each of them individually to discuss what their unique situation is and try my best to align that with what the city needs are, especially with the road diet, so that we can align those timelines appropriately. And then while I'm having those meetings, there would not actually be paperwork drafted for those meetings. They would just be introductory next step meetings with each of those homeowners. And then I would work in the background with John Shockley to work with a template that the city already uses for land acquisitions and develop that for each individual property owner. And then the plan, and I will let John talk about this in more depth, would be to bring each of those agreements, each of those 5 agreements that are based on that template, back to city commissioners at an executive session meeting to review how each unique situation has contributed to that agreement. So commissioners would be informed at every step of the way, but this would allow us to understand the individual needs of each property owner. So John, if you'd like to comment on any of that process.
Yeah, and just briefly, where we're at procedurally, the City Commission has given the go-ahead to start these discussions with the property owners. Our next step would be Lauren meeting with the property owners and then developing a formal offer that will probably be accompanied by a formal purchase agreement. Before we would send those formal purchase agreements out, I would propose that because there'll be some terms and conditions in there and that we would need to negotiate, we would have an executive session, get authorization from the commission to make sure that you're okay with those offers, and that can include discussions about potential testing for different types of materials in the structure. If there, obviously we want to make sure if there is something that's major, that's an unknown condition, that there would be potential ramp outs for the city. And so really those nuts and bolts of the actual terms and conditions of an agreement and an offer before we would extend that to each of the property owners. They would then, assuming the commission was okay with what is being proposed, the formal offers would then go out to the property owners. The property owners would then have the option to accept those offers or not. There could perhaps be additional negotiations after that. And then the final agreements would come back to the City Commission for approval. As with all property acquisition, those agreements need to come back to the Commission for final approval. And so that's just a brief overview of the process. I had envisioned that we'd probably see some of the first discussions and updates to the commission at the next commission meeting, but I thought it was important just to give the commission a brief overview of the procedural steps that are involved in the property acquisition.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Any questions of Mr. Shockley or Ms. Orchard with regard to, or Mrs. Fisk on the property acquisition? Is there any other
I guess there's
information, Lauren, that you're liking to share with us?
I guess I'd like to say something, if that's all right, Mayor.
Please.
So I've spoken with several people in the public today, as many of you know, and there is a large section of the community that has had an issue with our vote. Their complaint being, first and foremost, they didn't feel like there was enough transparency on this issue, and also there were people upset that we didn't have appraisals, and as well as paying the $30,000 in moving expenses. So what I'd like to add, I'd like to discuss more with the other commissioners more about this project as far as can we go back to appraisals? Is there something that we want to do for the sake of the public? I'd like to also reiterate the positives that this is going to bring to the community, and maybe Lauren and Tina can bring this up, and really the three of us that voted for it, why we decided to vote for it, so there's a better public understanding. And then I also know that there's a petition circulating around for people that are against that, and I don't know legally if Mr. Shockley's answer, if there's any thing, as far as that petition that would affect any of this at all.
Mr. Shockley, would you like to address the commissioner's question first?
Thank you, Mr. Commission President. I don't think I've seen any type of formal petition being circulated regarding the matter. I would want to review the specific terms of any such petition to provide guidance on moving forward. I would stress that the purchases aren't final until the City Commission approves the purchase agreements. And so we're somewhat in the beginning phases of this process. And so if there are additional questions or terms or conditions that are important to the Commission, we can certainly work to incorporate them into the purchase agreements.
The petition that Commissioner George is referring to is the document that Commissioner Olson and I forwarded you today.
Okay.
So in reference of, it's semantics, I think, as far as Commissioner George identifying it as a petition, but that is the only document that is out and about, that, to my knowledge, Mr. Shockley.
Okay, so I had a chance to review that letter. Thank you for the clarification. My understanding is it's a request by different residents of West Fargo, essentially for the commission to turn back the clock, so to speak, and not move forward with the purchase. And in order to do that, you would need a member of the prevailing side, so one of the three commissioners who voted in favor of the purchase would need to make a motion to reconsider the matter. Then you need a second, and you would have to have, a majority vote, of course, to reconsider it, and then that would bring the matter back before the commission for reconsideration. And if you didn't want to proceed with it, you certainly could. We're still at a point where, from a legal perspective, you could do that. The agreements haven't been signed, the offers haven't been made, and so, if there is consideration about wanting to reconsider it, now is certainly a good time to reconsider it before Lauren goes out and before formal offers are made to the property owners. But that is, of course, up to the commission. That's a policy matter if you want to reconsider moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Shockley. Commissioner George, is there some other points that you wanted to make before we move on with other commissioners in the discussion, being you brought this up?
At this point, I think those are the main points I wanted to focus on. But first and foremost, just to have additional discussion and to really identify why we are wanting to do this as a city.
I have a question for Mrs. Richard. Is this letter, or this correspondence letter that has been sent to the commissioners, is it posted also for the public to review? It should be if it's not. That's all I'm saying.
I'll maybe let Tina or John respond to that one.
President Dardis, I just received it forwarded from yourself and one other commissioner today, and so no, it is not. It was given to me as a correspondence, like all other correspondence. I hold on to it and then present it at the commission. I highlight it at the commission meeting, but I do not put it in the packet, especially with such a late date. It's just coming in today.
I understand completely, and thank you for that clarification. Then I think that's one of the items that we as the commission, all five of us, need to discuss, is whether or not how we proceed with it. So, anybody else weigh in?
Mayor?
Please, Commissioner Jurdovic.
So, like Commissioner George, I took a number of phone calls on this today and agree that there was a lot of concern expressed around the process and some misperceptions, probably some things that I think the city could probably do better on. We can always do better at our processes around getting input and going through something like this. So I agreed with some of the information around the process side of it. Commissioner George also asked the question, for us each to maybe say why we voted for it. I think is what you said, Andy. So, my thought on that, and to be very clear, it's not about voting about, it's not about the buying out the 5 homes. It's not about a parking lot. Those are not reasons why I personally voted for it. To be quite honest, I ran as a commissioner because I disliked I forget if it was a 25 or 30-year TIF for $16 to $17 million that funded the lights and helped that project. I thought that was, I did not like that, because what happens when you give out such a huge TIF is that the city still has to provide services to that property for the next 25 to 30 years, but the city is getting no revenue, nothing is coming into the city because it's all been spent for the parking garage and everything else. So in theory, it raises my taxes and your taxes and everybody's taxes in town to pay for the services that go around that. The idea with these 5 properties is to take sales tax to buy out the properties, and the property itself becomes the incentive. So you get 2 or 3 years down the road, if, you know, and there's certainly a question is, you know, we have things to make happen, but if something gets developed there, and as long as the value of that is greater than the 5 houses that currently sit there, it's a win for the city. We're collecting more property tax, and the school is collecting, you know, more property tax, and it's just a very different development incentive. So instead of, you know, handing out the next 25 or 30 years of property tax, which I'm not for, it's using sales tax as an engine to take a different approach. You know, I think there's a lot of validity in the idea that it could be a really great tool for the city, and that's why I voted for it, because I think that long term, if we did more of this, it would actually lower people's property taxes instead of the alternative that we see with TIF districts, where I would argue, in theory at least, that it increases people's property taxes.
Thank you, Commissioner.
A long explanation, but.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurdick. All good, sound reasoning.
Yeah, I agree with you.
If we get a developer that steps up and responds to a request for bid because of economic conditions or whatever, it's speculative at best. And I do not believe that the city of West Fargo should be in the speculative real estate market. That's why I voted against it. Thank you.
Mayor?
Someone else? Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you. I'm not even going to bring up the point of the 5 homes. That's up to you 3 commissioners that supported it. You did it for your own reasons. That's totally fine. But I will object to the always bringing up things that we've done in the past, such as the lights. You know, that lights is actually bringing in income and revenue right now. And Tina, and I don't know if Jim Larson is on the line, but I'm getting kind of tired of hearing people say, oh, it's losing money, when in reality it is not losing money. Those lights and that rink out there had 10,000, Mayor, I think, skaters come out and skate.
9,975, yes, sir.
I have never, in my 17 years on the commission, had such a fine example of what we've done as a city for people to come and use our utility, you know, use our vendor, our public, I guess, spaces. And this thing has been hugely successful. We have people coming from as far away as Portugal to skate on our ice. And, I mean, it's huge. We have a professor, a hockey coach from Northwestern, I think it was State, came up this weekend. We have Dean Blaze has already called us. We all know who he is. He's coming next weekend. This thing has been remarkable. So, again, the homes is, I respect the decisions that you folks made on that. I'll live with it. I'm not going to talk bad about it at all. But please, let's stop bringing up other things to justify the reason for doing this. Let's just talk about the homes and go with that. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
And if I could just say one thing, Commissioner Simmons, I'm a big fan of the lights as well. I was using it solely as an example that I think there are different financing mechanisms out there that could get us away from doing TIF as our primary mechanism. So it was an example. It wasn't meant to put down the lights. I'm a big fan of it too. Not necessarily a skater, but I'm a big fan of it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Thank you, Commissioner Jurkovic.
Other commissioners?
Well, I haven't spoken yet, but I don't want to take up much more time, but I'll echo what Commissioner Jurkovic said. This is going to put more taxable property right now once it gets developed. And one thing that I've been watching on the news is after the 1918 pandemic, what followed? The Roaring 20s, where the economy just boomed. So, you know, hopefully what we've done will I don't know what the right word will be helping us out in the long run in a short time, that will come roaring in, and it'll be something that will be a great asset to the city.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson.
I'd like to just ask if anybody wants to have discussion on this or what we think about this. One of the issues the public had was on the lack of appraisals on these properties. So I want to make sure that comes up for discussion and how everybody else feels about that.
Commissioner George, would you like me to explain why staff moved forward without that, and then you can discuss your decisions from there? Lauren, do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to?
I have a few points, but Tina, if you don't mind jumping in while I go.
You go right ahead.
Thank you. So thank you, Commissioner George, for that excellent question. I think that anytime the city looks at purchasing properties, appraisals are a smart move. And I'm very used to taking out 2 appraisals on any property to make sure it's an equal appraisal. And it's absolutely up to the commission whether or not you want to go through that process. But I do want to communicate why we didn't pursue that. So legally, first and foremost, legally, it's not a requirement, and appraisals cost money. And so we really wanted to try to save the city money when we knew what the sale price was. When you get appraisals done when you're buying a home, it makes sense because you're taking out a mortgage and you can't get the mortgage without the appraisal. We're in a very different situation here where we knew what the sale price was, and we knew that if the appraisal came in below it, then there would not have been a deal. And if the appraisal came in too high, well, then the property owners would ask for more money. So it was really a no-win scenario with the appraisals if we were to get them when we knew what the asking price was, and we were able to negotiate it in a way that I think was actually very transparent, including 2 commissioners, which is legally how many we could have there, and bringing it to the commission as soon as we had that asking price in hand. So I would say we definitely can go through the appraisal process. There is no real resistance from our end in doing that, except it is a risky situation to put ourselves in if we do want to pursue this opportunity, because if it comes below what we agreed on, then there's no deal. And if it goes in above what we have offered, then they'll want more money. So that's what my general response would be to that. I would also, the last point I would like to make on that is, this is a unique situation for appraisers. So if we do go out and try to find an appraiser, we may have some difficulty finding someone comfortable with this scenario because of the redevelopment process. I've personally had some difficulty in my past job and even here trying to get appraisals because this scenario, these houses won't stay houses. They would be redeveloped into something else. And that is still something the commission needs to guide staff on what you want it turned into as well, based on the West Fargo 2.0 plan. So if I do go out and solicit appraisals, I don't have much to tell that appraiser for definitively what it would be, which makes it a very difficult job for them to give us an acceptable purchase price. So those are the comments I would make. But if if City Administrator Fisk has anything else to say, she definitely can.
Nope, you covered it all, Lauren. I'm just here for questions.
The second question that I asked when this discussion came before me was, do we have appraisals? And Ms. Orchard gave that same explanation to me at that time. My counter to that would be, we know that these properties will not appraise for what the asking price is by these homeowners. Correct? Am I correct?
I would not say that, Commission President Dardis, and the reason I would not say that is because that is under the assumption that the appraiser would appraise them like our appraisers do, which is for their current use as single-family residential. So the information that we had in front of us was what our appraisers have appraised the houses at, which is most likely where you may have gotten that impression. But as I said, because these houses would be redeveloping into something that we have yet to decide on, it's a very difficult question to answer because I wouldn't even know exactly what I'm telling the appraiser to appraise the properties for.
So let me pose this question to the commission. If one of these homeowners falls out of this process, one of those on facing Cheyenne, if one of those people say, the deal's off, one of them, what's your position on this whole thing? Because we know for a fact what the assessed value is, not the appraised value. We keep throwing both of those terms around. This is not an appraised value by our appraisers. It is an assessed value by our assessors, okay? And by state law, by the North Dakota Century Code, we have to be within 5%, 95 to 100% of true value. That's by Century Code, okay? So that would, one would naturally assume that the assessors of the city of West Fargo are at that 95% to 100%. Okay, so if you take the 5 properties and add up the total of what they're assessed, what is that number? $800 and some thousand dollars. Correct? Somebody answer, please. Is that not correct?
I would assume it's in that ballpark. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Jurdevig, for at least acknowledging that. So there we are. All said and done, it's $1,400,000 plus $474,000, I believe it is. Okay.
Is there a way that we can appraise the land?
Justify the difference between what the assessed value is and the actual sale price, and you might turn me as a believer in this. Because as it is right now, it makes no sense that we're paying these people at such a premium. Consider again, if one of these drops out, we don't have 42,000 square feet. If somebody doesn't like the process, of course, we have no purchase agreements at this time. Are you still going to vote for this if one of them falls out?
I mean, from my perspective, if one of them drops out, the opportunity is not there. So, I mean, I have no, I mean, that's my personal opinion on it.
So, Mayor, may I ask a question?
It's Commissioner Simmons.
So that's a very good, and again, I'm not even going to get into the home deal. I just have a question. So, Lauren, is that going to be, or John, Mr. Shockley, is that going to be in our contract, that the stipulation, because you're going to be negotiating individually with these 5 homes. Say you negotiate with the first 3, and they agree, and the 4th one says, no, I'm not selling. Are you going to have that in the first 3 contracts that says, hey, if they all don't buy, we're not buying anybody's, because we have to have some protection, because we can't buy 3 homes without all of them. We can't buy 4 homes without the 5th one. So is that going to be in the contract?
So, Commissioner Simmons, yes, I would want that in the contract as a condition precedent to closing. I'm clearly not an appraiser. The value of the property comes in the assemblage of having all of the property, and if one of the homes drops out, you lose your value of assemblage. And so in order to protect the city's interest, one of the preconditions to closing is that they would all have to close. And I would actually propose that once Lauren has finished negotiating some of the individual terms, we'd probably want to have a closing all on the same date. We can work with move-out days and things like that. And maybe rent-back agreements have done that before, but we want to have a simultaneous close of all the properties in order to protect the city's interest in assembling the property, because the value comes there. And one additional comment about the appraisals. One of the issues you run into when you assemble property is that the appraiser will be asked to make what's called an assumption. Every appraisal that is required to be obtained at a commercial level makes assumptions and extraordinary assumptions. You wouldn't necessarily appraise the property as 5 individual homes because you're acquiring the property as one solid parcel. So the appraiser will have to make some assumptions in their appraisal, and it might actually be one appraisal that splits out the value of 5 homes. It'd be a very complex appraisal, and it would take some education from a transparency perspective to explain the different values of the homes. And I say that having previously I litigated eminent domain cases, and so I have a lot of experience explaining appraisals to juries and even to judges. And with commercial appraisals on property assemblage for projects like this, it can sometimes be a confusing appraisal. So it can certainly be done, but I would just caution that it's not going to be a nice, clean appraisal like we're used to seeing. You wouldn't get 5 individual homes because the value doesn't come from 5 individual homes. It comes from the property assemblage.
Another question I had is it possible to get an appraisal of what that land would be like or be worth when it's cleared off? Is a value of just a blank, clean piece of property in that location? And is that something anybody cares about?
I would think that'd be a lot worse, quite honestly, because now you took the homes off and you just have raw land. That's going to make the appraisal even worse.
Well, sure, I understand that, but just as far as what the value would be to somebody.
Well, as an example, Commissioner George, that's a great question. Last week when we were dealing with somebody asking for a tax reduction on property, this property, if you add all the expenses up, comes to $35.17 a square foot. Okay? The property out by the interstate at the Veterans exit was asking for a valuation of that clear property, no buildings on it, at $10 a square foot. So I think, Commissioner George, you raised one of the most important things in this whole discussion this evening, and that is that, Ms. Orchard has responded to it. But this is where I really struggle. The letter that you're referencing and Tina's referenced and Commissioner Jurdovic has referenced today, there are 40 citizens from the city of West Fargo asking for us to review this again. But the point that I wanted to make about Commissioner George is that the discussion is that these 5 property owners all want to be paid an equal price for their homes. 5 property owners all want to be paid an equal price for their home, $230,000. The assessed value by our city staff for one of these homes, for 2 of these homes, is less than $150,000. One's at 143 and change, one's at 149. Okay? And I understand the whole discussion about the 42,000 square feet, that it's contiguous, all right? But how can we look at the taxpayers in the city of West Fargo when a value of a house is $143,000 and change? I think it's $143,700 or $143,900, and the other one's $149,000 and change, and pay them $230,000. With all due respect, I can't do that. So I will continue to advocate against this. It's not a reasonable amount of money for what the value of the property is. And again, everybody can talk about the contiguous 42,000 square feet. Remember that we had a developer, a large developer that has built 2 hotels in our community, ask for us to reduce the value of clear dirt along the interstate to $10 a square foot in our last meeting. So there's some relative thoughts on that. Thank you. I'll call on the rest of the commissioners for the rest of the comments. I'm through for the evening.
I think another question is, I think I've asked this to Lauren before, but I know a lot of people are asking about this. Has any developer expressed any interest at all in this project so far?
Would you like me to respond, Commissioner George?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that question. I think the difficult thing about that question is if there was any interest from a developer that wanted to purchase it, I don't know that we'd be having this discussion. And the reason is, to the best of our abilities, we don't try to interfere with the free market unless the free market needs the assistance. And this is a really special scenario where we have properties already assembled, but they're complicated and they are difficult to get to become a greenfield site. So as Mayor Dardis just pointed out, the price per square foot will of course be a lot less in a greenfield site close to the interstate than it would be to go and demolish structures in a downtown area. And that is just the nature of development, and that is why we have not seen interest from developers, to be frank with you. But I can't go and solicit interest because we don't own the properties. So we're in a catch-22 situation where we don't have interest from developers because it's difficult to assemble and clear the lots. And I can't go solicit interest because the lots have not been assembled and cleared. So that is the current scenario as I would describe it.
Mayor Darters?
Yes, Commissioner Simmons.
I would just make one comment to counter some of that, Lauren, is that, because that's your opinion. My opinion is we don't have interest from the developers because there's over 30,000 square feet of open space down there right now that the same developers are trying to fill and can't get them filled. So that would be my counter, Commissioner George, to that.
I'm going to make one more comment, with all due respect. I went back and did some research on commercial sales of property throughout North Dakota. Commercial sales of property, and some of it, as you said, Ms. Orchard, is greenfield at different spots. Some of it's downtown. In none of the sales in North Dakota was there a $35 plus per square foot for the dirt. None. Thank you.
Over what time period was that?
3 years.
3 years.
Well, I guess the other aspect of it is, even though it's more per square foot, I mean, part of that is because we're looking at an incentive to incentivize bringing a developer in. So
that's an excellent point, Commissioner George. And what I would say is any incentive that the city gives in any context is to facilitate development. It is, in a way, messing with the free market to get what the citizens want to have happen in an area based on what your comprehensive plan wants. And so, maybe properties are selling for a lot less, but perhaps there's also a TIF layered on top or a tax abatement layered on top. And so I can't respond directly to what Commissioner Dartis is speaking of with price points. But that's a really good consideration to keep in mind, that this would in it of itself be the incentive, is the purchase of the land that in its current state is hindering development on that site.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of add on that point that both Lauren and Commissioner George made, I mean, I think we're bringing together two things. Yes, the value of those 5 homes as homes do not equate to $1.5 million. And I think it's really easy in the public for them to just do that math and say that doesn't make sense. But the Bell property right next door is the exact same physical size, or really, really close. If that was empty and the developers have said it was worth $1.5 million, and the city provides a $5 million TIF to help build parking in that structure, which might sound crazy to some of the people listening, but that is what this commission approved back in, I believe, March of this year. Like, that's where we're kind of combining some issues. And not all of us voted for that $5 million, but, this is an attempt to take a piece of property and do something very different with it. So it's not solely that 1.5 is kind of a false number when we think of it as the value of those homes. That's not, at least that's not the way I'm viewing it. I'm viewing it as the incentive that gets us to the point of development at a lower cost than what any of these other projects has cost the city that I have seen since I've been a commissioner.
Commissioner Chertovic brings up a great point. The discussion that we had when Epic companies came to us a number of months ago with regard to the Bell property. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, when we had our last commission meeting, we heard from the vice president of Epic companies. So they've applied for a TIF. They don't own the property. Is that a bit unusual? Because there has not been a consummated sale on that property from the Bell Bank people and Epic companies, and we approved financing for it, a TIF financing. Is that not a little bit unusual? Anyone that knows the answer?
I'm sorry, Commission President Dartis, I don't know if you want me to respond to that or a fellow commissioner.
Please, Ms. Orchard, I don't
know the answer directly either, and I I would ask Epic companies to respond to that directly, but what I can say from the city side and how that might relate to these properties, I would like commissioners to consider this property as a blank slate for development that's been identified by the community. And that type of development may not be and likely won't be another mixed-use building in the same way those Epic buildings have been built. And so I don't want to open up the floodgates of a direct comparison to the two types of development. These properties could become townhomes, which is something that is lacking in the townhomes.
Oh, thank you.
It could become a grocery store. These are all things that have been identified by the community as needs in the downtown area, and I think would help serve those businesses and would help serve Epic companies as they try to get more tenants in those buildings. The idea is to bring more of that core population and have diversity of experience and of development in the downtown. That's what the community has said that they want. And this would give us the opportunity to do that. So I would encourage you all to not think of this as just another mixed-use, high-rise development spot, but as an opportunity to build other types of development that the community wants. So I would not get nervous about not being able to fill the space. I would actually think of this as an opportunity to help fill those spaces.
President Dardis, can I make one comment? When we're talking greenfields typically don't have all the infrastructure in that they need to support the entire space. You have to build that in. So like the vacant lots that are around the interstate, they still need all of their infrastructure in. Another problem, another issue to think about is, this is just an example. I think the work that's been done downtown Cheyenne is amazing. You've got Cheyenne Plaza, you've got Pioneer Place, they're amazing. But if you calculate what the city invested into Pioneer Place, it's $68 a square foot. And that's just, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's what was done to spur development, to help our economy, to help our city, and to start creating a downtown. It's not easy to create a space when there's all these other buildings there. It's very expensive to tear down and start over. When you tear down buildings and start over, you already have some of those services in place, so you're not creating huge special assessments for the property like a greenfield would have. So those are just a couple comments to consider and think about.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisk. It's interesting because if it's at $60 plus and the infrastructure was there, then that is another interesting discussion. But we're not here to talk about what was done previously. I think it's amazing what's happened downtown too. It's hard to sometimes quantify it now as you take a look and you break it down into those expenses. But we're all very proud of what's transpired downtown. So I have a question for Mr. Shockley. With the drawings that were presented to us and the TIF district that we approved months ago for Epic companies with regard to the Bell property, and then only last week did we find out from Ms. Haas, they don't own the property. Is there something out of whack here, Mr. Shockley?
I'll have to go back and look at what the application was. You can grant a TIF district on the property. I'm assuming that our owner and the developer were both in agreement with putting a TIF on the property. That TIF had a set timeline, and so it's really it's to their detriment if they don't act to construct. But I can go back and take a look at that petition, what was on there. I don't have it in front of me, so it's a difficult question to answer without all the facts.
I understand. Thank you, Mr. Shockley. But I was just surprised to know that there hadn't been a transaction last commission meeting when that was stated. Surprised me.
Mayor, I just have
Commissioner Simmons.
just one more question. Tina or whomever, that $35 a square foot we're talking about, Tina, is that just for the price of the homes, or is that tear down everything, the $35?
Everything.
Lauren can give you all the details, but that's a high-end estimate of all costs to get it down to.
Okay.
And actually including gravel, I believe, right, Lauren?
Okay, I was just curious. That's all I need to know. Thank you. I just wanted to know.
Mayor?
Please, Commissioner George.
So something else I want to have addressed, that the public has asked questions about is, so the homes to the east of the homes that we're buying, you know, there's complaints from those people as far as, do they have to stare at a parking lot for how long, and will it be the back end of an ugly commercial building, and what will this do to their property values? And I was just wondering if somebody could address those concerns.
I'm happy to do that if that's okay, Commission President Dardis.
Certainly, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner George, for that question. And I do definitely want to respect those concerns from those property owners. The ultimate goal for us at the city would be to keep it a temporary parking lot and to have something built as soon as possible after road diet construction. We want it to serve both of those benefits, and in order to serve both of those benefits, it truly would be a temporary parking lot. As far as the development, they of course would have the opportunity to have a say in what that development is as we go through the development process, particularly if the zoning is changed. So right now, those properties are zoned as multifamily, which would precipitate it most likely being townhomes. So if it does not turn into that, it does have to go through the full planning process. And I believe our planning director, Tim Solberg, is on the call as well if he would like to add anything else to that. But they would have the opportunity to speak.
If I can, that's okay with you, President Dardis?
Absolutely. Please, Mr. Tim.
They're zoned R3. The rezoning would require us to consider what could happen. What I would suggest happens, if that's a concern, is that we look at the zoning of those properties. Those are single-family homes to the east that are zoned for multifamily. So we might want to look at rezoning them to a lower zoning district so that they can be protected by the required setbacks of the downtown mixed-use district that we put in place. So that's my suggestion we would do, and that's all part of this process of kind of discovering what the best use of this property is, going through and having that planning process with the commission to make sure that we make the right decision for this. Right now, I'm looking at it as a decision's been made, and so I'm starting to kind of explore how we're going to go about discovering what the best use is for this property with economic development, where we can get the best use, but also what's best for downtown.
I have a question to Mr. Solberg. I've driven the property a number of times. Would it be the intent, if the city completes the purchase of these properties, would you vacate the alleyway? Because isn't it up to half of it can be by the adjoining property owners?
Yeah, I believe it's a 20-foot alleyway, so they'll gain 10 feet on both sides. So the property owners to the east would then gain 10 feet as well.
Thank you, Mr. Solberg.
Thank you.
Is there any guarantee we can offer those people that they're not going to be looking at an ugly concrete wall or something like that out their windows?
As of today, yes. The zoning would not allow that. The process of rezoning also gives the opportunity for them to have a say in the process, including if they object. If 20% or more of those people object, it requires a supermajority of the commission. So a 3-2 vote wouldn't do it. It would require a 4-1 vote.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
And then as far as the values of the properties, as far as the value of the actual properties there, concerned that their property values would be affected by this. Is there any issues there? Nice, Lauren or Tina.
I can try to take a stab at it. I'm not the city assessor, so I'm not the authority on this, but the development there would only impact the assessed valuation of the properties that are developed, from my perspective, unless those property owners wanted to put their houses on the market for some sort of development that may benefit from that other development being right next door. So they may have the potential to sell their properties for more, depending on this development, would be my only comment. But I'm not the city assessor, and the assessing department does not increase assessments because of the development happening through economic development.
Commission President, I can also add a little bit to that. I know Nick Lee's on here if you want to comment from him, but when you put it in perspective, when this area develops, it's no different than all the other frontage of Cheyenne Street. You go across the alley and there's homes. So it's not, I mean, you have a boundary eventually somewhere. So it's just kind of similar in nature, but if you want more specifics, Nick could probably respond to the change in value. I know other properties have said their property values increased, but I can't attest to that.
Thank you,
I just want to make sure we discuss the concerns that the public has brought forth over the last couple of days.
Mayor?
Please, Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you. I guess I'm just going to make a comment here because I'm going to assume, which isn't a good thing to do, but I'm going to assume, Commissioner George, all these questions you've been asking, that you knew the answers prior to your vote 2 weeks ago and that all you knew these answers. So I'm hoping that's the truth because if this is just coming out now, we're in big trouble. So I'm hoping you all have these answers already clarified.
For myself,
I think Commissioner George is trying to make sure that this discussion is as transparent as possible for the public.
And that's why I brought that up, Mayor.
And I admire her for that. So, but go back to your original statement, Commissioner George, about transparency.
Absolutely, and that was the number one complaint we got, is that the public didn't feel we were transparent enough and that we hadn't had enough conversation on this. And I respect that the public feels that way because we do answer to them. That's our boss, is the public. And even though I think each of us will probably continue to not want to change our votes, but I do feel like we do owe it to the public to explain everything as thoroughly as possible as to why we decided to vote the way we did.
Agreed. And that's what I meant by that.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner George. Jurdovic, did you have something?
I just agreed with Commissioner George.
Okay. So, Commissioner George, has this answered those questions on the transparency and those questions, or are you suggesting that we have an additional public meeting on this?
That's a good question. I feel like the people that are most concerned are probably watching right now, because I know a lot of the people that reached out to me said that they were going to be watching this evening and we're going to be paying close attention to what we were saying. I don't know if we necessarily need to have another meeting specifically on this unless those people, speak out and say that they want. That, I personally don't feel that we do.
Commissioner Jurdovic made a comment earlier that he received a number of phone calls today, as I did, and they were people that were aware of this and wanted some additional explanation from a commissioner, from myself. And I'm sure that's the same people or similar type of conversation that Commissioner Jurdovic, I shouldn't answer for him. That being said, I do believe that there are going to be additional people reaching out to us on this issue. The term that a number of you commissioners have used is the petition. I do believe that's going to continue to grow. So again, Commissioner George, I laud you for bringing this difficult discussion back up today, but I want to make sure that being that this was your reference of discussion on this, that we're adequately answering you as one of our fellow commissioners, and if we need to do something additional. And I'll respect whatever the commission decides on that.
Mayor?
Please, Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you. Commissioner George, I just want to make it clear, I wasn't being sarcastic. I just wanted the people that are listening to know that we're not asking these questions now. They've already been asked and answered. That's what I was doing here, not trying to criticize it. So,
yeah,
I understand completely. Yep.
All the dialogue that Commissioner George, Commissioner Jurdovic, Commissioner Olson, Commissioner Simmons, this is all a rehash for Miss Orchard and Mrs. Fisk and answering these questions. This has been discussed at length, but so it's always good to have additional conversation about this. It is what it is. We had a 3-2 vote on this, and we'll move forward on the next project, and we all have to work together again to develop and decide on what that might mean to the city of West Fargo. So this is a 3-2 vote. The only way, as Mr. Shockley has pointed out, from a legal standpoint, is there has to be a motion to reconsider, and I don't see that forthcoming. So Is there any other discussion on this item before we move on to any other Mrs. Fisk's correspondence discussions? Anybody at all? If there staff, anybody else can wade in. All right, Mrs. Fisk, additional correspondence that you'd like to share with us, please.
Okay, the second item that I have here is presentation for the options for the city rebate program. You brought this up at the last meeting and requested that staff do some due diligence and come back to you with different ideas and concepts, and if the rebate card or the whatever you want to call it is going to work, or how all those things are. And I think we started out with John giving us his legal findings, and then we had a meeting. I know Lauren and Melissa have a number of items that they've worked on in relation to this, and then they can speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisk. Who wants to take the lead, Miss?
I'll take the lead if you don't need.
All
Yes.
right. Very good.
Thank you, Commissioner. So based on the direction of the Commission at your last meeting, Melissa, Richard, and I have been investigating how we could potentially send $25 rebate cards out to every household in the community that could be used at West Fargo businesses. So, and we also talked about the legal implications of doing a program like that with Mr. Shockley. So first I'd like to give Melissa Richard the opportunity to talk about what she found by looking for a vendor that could perform this type of service for us, and then Mr. Shockley can take it from there. So Melissa.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Commission President Dardis and Commissioners, for the opportunity to present what we've discovered. Initially, as we were looking into this and trying to figure out internally how we could manage the idea of money going out to every household in West Fargo, how to make sure it's limited to only businesses in West Fargo, just logistical things about if someone doesn't spend all the money in one place. We decided to do some investigation to see if there's a third-party vendor out there who could assist us with this. And I'm happy to report that we did find a vendor who specializes in this type of program. He has completed this. The vendor has completed similar programs in Texas and some various locations. Commissioner Simmons shared with me that there was a town in North Dakota who had done something similar. I wasn't able to connect with them. Commissioner Simmons, I apologize. I didn't get a chance to reconnect with you. So what I'd like to present is what I've discovered and how the gift card program could operate, knowing with using this vendor, and then we can have John talk about some legal considerations that go with that. So. As we were working on this, we discovered that we have 16,264 households in West Fargo, which is a higher number than I was anticipating based on initial data that we had. We also have a list of just over 1,500 potential businesses through these lists. Now, not all those businesses would be kind of a direct-to-consumer business that would participate. So there's some filtering that would have to be done there, but that's what we discovered in terms of numbers. The way the vendor works that we discovered is that they create a sales program that you have to be invited into to participate. And they have a digital platform for businesses to respond and participate. So what we would do is send invitations to West Fargo businesses only to participate and sign up for this program. In addition, the vendor then loads $25 onto gift cards that would be mailed out to every household. Those cards are only eligible to be used at businesses that have signed up to participate. So we know also there might be some businesses who just decide not to participate, and so they would have that option. The cards can be used with scanners or can be entered into different programs to track the $25. Using this vendor allows us to allow someone to maybe spend $17 in one location and then spend the remaining balance in another location. They have a reporting system that allows us to track how the money is where the money is being spent and how much money is being spent one of the really big benefits, I think, to using this third-party vendor as well is that they are able to do the reimbursements to the businesses very fast. So every Friday they would pull a report of dollars that have been spent at their business, and they would submit for direct deposit back to those businesses, and they usually land in the accounts they said around Wednesday or Thursday of the following week. So that's a very quick turnaround, I believe, for getting the money back into the businesses, and so they're not holding that $25 rebate kind of on their books, if you will. The budget I broke down in terms of cost, in terms of mailing and distribution, in terms of what the actual gift card balance would look like when we take that times 17,000. That was a recommendation also of this vendor to estimate up, because even with the best list, sometimes we miss people, and we want to give opportunity for them to request their cards. Also a little bit of money for marketing to get that information out there, and also to provide promotional materials for those businesses that choose to participate to have at their site, so they can properly let residents know that they are a part of this program. I also broke it down by percentage just to reassure you that we still have the most majority of the cost with this program going to those gift cards and getting the money in the hands of the businesses. And so you still see 87% of this budget that we've pulled together is the dollars on the gift cards to be sent back into the community. Based on some just initial discussions with staff, they were excited about the opportunity to have someone help manage this program, and help support us as we go about our other responsibilities. And as I said before, I'm especially excited about the turnaround for getting the money back to the businesses once they've been redeemed. I just provided a few descriptions of what the vendor services are and the mailing for your knowledge as you look at the budget that I've provided in here. For marketing, again, we need to provide signage for those businesses so they can identify themselves as participants. We need to do some digital advertising and some print advertising to just support it and get everyone out locally. There's also a great idea of doing a gift card giveaway in the community as well, where there'd be a higher value gift card that is given away either through a photo contest where someone is showing how they're supporting a local business, or a sign-up form where they can just simply say that they've done it, whatever it is, and that's been built into the budget as well. And those have been very successful in the past for promoting local businesses and getting participation. There is, we've heard that there's some of you may have heard Jay Thomas and Commissioner Simmons talking about this on the radio, and Jay Thomas has offered support for this program as well, which is really exciting. I don't know if Commissioner Simmons wants to make any more comments on that element.
Sure. Do you want me to do that now, Melissa?
Yeah, I think so. And then I think we could let John speak up about some kind of legal ways to make sure that we're doing this correctly.
Okay, thank you. Well, first I want to compliment you very much, because I did not think about the turnaround time for these businesses with these gift cards, and we all know money's a crunch, so I think it's huge that we do the turnaround. And I did go on the Jay Thomas show and talk to Jay, and he actually came up with a great idea as far as ways to promote this, and especially for the younger people and all people for that matter, but getting out and spending them. You know, a lot of people may get these cards and put them in their drawer and forget about them or not use them. And the whole point of this is to get people to spend them, to spend the money in our community and help it. And I think Jay made a good point again about doing a program, and Melissa, you could talk more about that. Jay did tell me that he would support us hugely in this. He's behind it, and this may be my personal opinion, but I think if we have Jay Thomas on our side, I think that's huge. I think he'll do a lot of promoting.
Absolutely, and so just to further describe what they talked about is, again, a large amount on a gift card that's given away for someone who takes a picture with themselves at a local West Fargo business and provides a hashtag or something like that so we can track them and then enter them into the gift card drawing. Besides that, I'll let John hop in now and talk about some of the legal things that we can do, because that really impacts what the timeline looks like. But included in the document is what that timeline might look like, and it really looks like the program beginning March 1st and ending March 28th. And that was another recommendation of the vendor, is to keep it on a specific timeline to use the gift cards so that it encourages use right away. And John can weigh in on what the legal requirements in North Dakota would be for that as well.
Ms. Richards,
Melissa?
you're sharing your screen with us, and we have a beautiful picture of you and your daughter.
Oh, no.
Melissa?
Thank you.
Melissa?
Mr. Simmons.
I'm sorry, Mayor. Melissa, I can't talk very well. I'm starting to lose my throat. I had surgery, so it's difficult. But Melissa, could you explain, I know I told you, in reference to what the citizens, like, go to the business and take a picture. Do you remember what I told you about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry that you're so what would happen is people that have the gift card would go to a local business where they're going to spend it and take a picture of themselves spending it, or provide some kind of proof of spending it. And we would have them submit that through social media. There's we can use hashtags to track it. And then we would devise a system to do drawings for gift card giveaways based on their participation. It's also just a great way to get information out about those local businesses and show the community supporting those businesses. And so that was an excellent idea. And I apologize for the missed screens there.
Thank you. Could you remind the public where the resources of this $486,950, where is that dollars coming from?
I will defer to the rest of the team on that. We just kind of worked on getting the program and communication set up, but I think that's better answered by one of my colleagues.
Mrs. Fisk?
Thank you, President Dardis. The city has received COVID relief funds, and the COVID relief funds were sent forward to the city based on what was the easiest for the state to compile them through. It was salary and benefits paid to police officers. But so the money has come in and we're holding it, and it does not have to be used on reimbursing for police salaries. So this would be a legitimate use of some of the funds that we have received from COVID relief. And it seems to be a fitting area for that.
Thank you.
I just want to make one other quick comment, Mayor, too. I know that, Jay had talked about it, but so did Wendy from the Pioneer. So I know she's on board in the media as well, as far as helping us promote this. So I think it'll go over really well.
Absolutely. Wendy and the Pioneer continue to be great champions for the city as well. So thank you for including that.
Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Jurdevig.
One question that was brought up by somebody today that I was visiting with was just around kind of the security of it, meaning, we've all seen the videos online of the porch pirates and so forth, and when we send out 17,000 gift cards, probably all in the same day, and they start hitting mailboxes, I don't bring it up as a concern that I think that we should not do it because of that, but I think it's a risk that we have to at least be aware of.
Absolutely. Thank you for that comment. And we have discussed with the vendor how we design the envelope that is included and some different strategies there to try to avoid some of those pitfalls. The good news is it will be in an envelope that will fit into mailboxes. And so hopefully we'll be able to provide some security just based on that in the first. So yes, great comment.
One question.
Commissioner Wilson.
If we approve this, will the person that's using it have to provide like a driver's license to say that they are a West Fargo resident, or
No, sorry, I apologize. we were able to find a list of West Fargo households and addresses. So it will be sent to individual addresses, and the list that we found also addressed the issue of making sure it gets to individual apartment units as well. So that's one of the reasons why the number came in a little higher than we were expecting. We've put some different types of townhomes and condos and different types of units online in the last year or so, or 2 years. So that number was a bit higher than we were expecting, but it does go directly to a West Fargo address only.
I just have one other question, Mayor.
Please, Commissioner Simmons.
Sorry. And this goes to Melissa or Lauren or probably John, all three, but will we be able to move this timeline up somewhat?
Well, thank you, Mr. Commission President. In order to implement this program, the city has to rely upon its home rule charter authority, and we have to create an enterprise fund. And as a result, we need an ordinance to do that. And so that's why we have 2 readings. It won't be an ordinance as in you're normally used to that has like a zoning ordinance with a whole bunch of different provisions and sections. It'll be an ordinance to create this enterprise fund. So we need a first and second reading. If you wanted to truncate that process, you could certainly have a special meeting. The readings for ordinance need to be at least 7 days apart. So if you wanted to speed up the process by a week, you could have the first reading at the regular meeting in 2 weeks, and then have a special meeting 1 week after that, just simply to approve the second reading.
I think that's something, if we support this, we should do, commissioners, to get this out and running.
Yep. I would agree with that. I just have a couple real brief things, and I just wanted to mention just the most common things I've received from or heard from the public. The first one you've already addressed is, does it include apartment households? And yes, it does. And the second one, I think we've already answered this, but just they want to make sure grocery stores are included in the businesses listed.
Thank you for that feedback, and we'll be sure to target them to provide them with the invitation and let them know of the community desire for them to participate.
I think I know the answer to this, but some of the questions that have been posed to me is, can they take their gift card and apply it to any of the utility services with the city of West Fargo? For their water bill, for their garbage, whatever. Now, that's not the idea that Commissioner Jurdevig and Commissioner Simmons have been advocating, because we wanted to turn the dollars within the community. But I think that's a legitimate question that we as commissioners have to give consideration to, because I've had 2 or 3 people, I think it's 3, ask me that specific question.
And I don't mean to speak out of turn, but we would appreciate if the commission could provide direction on that.
I would think if we have to go through businesses, though, John, please jump in, because I would think if we got to go through the businesses, then we wouldn't allow it to go to the water bills or what have you, utility bills. Oh, you must be muted.
John, you're muted.
Hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is really a policy question. If you wanted to have the cards apply to water.
John, could you get a little closer to your computer and start again? Thank you.
Can you hear me now? For some odd reason.
Turn her up a little bit, John.
Okay. Sorry, for whatever reason, my computer isn't picking up my voice as well right now. It's a policy decision for the commission. If you want to have it apply to water and sewer bills, we can certainly have that happen. When we drafted it, or as we've drafted this plan, we've always contemplated businesses. But if it's something that you want to include, just direct us to, and we'll include city water and utility service.
That would not be my inclination, Mayor. No, I prefer the way we did it.
I would agree with you, Commissioner Simmons.
When I had somebody ask me about that, my response was that I didn't believe we were going to be doing that, but you could use it to buy groceries, and that seemed like an acceptable response.
That's a business. Yeah. So do we need a motion of some type tonight?
Yes.
Okay,
Our actions 2 weeks ago was to have the staff move forward on the research and development of this program. So we didn't act on the program that was presented to us this evening. So we would need that needs to be an actionable item because we're spending city money.
Okay. So I would make a motion, if there are no more questions, I'd make a motion to approve and move forward with this.
Can I suggest that that you include the special commission meeting so that we can move it up a week in that motion?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And also, is it necessary for the policy about use for utilities to be included in that?
Pardon me, Melissa?
Is it necessary to include that you've made a policy decision that it would not be used for city utilities? Can that be included?
If John says we need to do that, so moved, yeah.
I would second that.
And moved and seconded to approve the gift card program for the city of West Fargo, and that we have more aggressive timeline than is outlined on the presentation to us this evening, and that it cannot be used for auxiliary services to the city of West Fargo. Does that summarize it acceptable to the Mr. Commissioner Simmons that made the motion and Mr. Jurdevig who seconded it?
That is well said.
All right.
Yes.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yes, I have a question.
Please, Commissioner Olson.
Well, does the motion include the amount of the gift card? Is it $25? Is it $20? What is the amount? We haven't decided that.
Well, it says up there $25.
Well, is that?
The discussion 2 weeks ago was both numbers were thrown out. Good point, Commissioner Olson.
Because at $20, it's $340,000 versus $425.
My motion is for $25.
Okay, just want to make sure that everybody's clear on that.
Yeah.
And then are we going to, is it just local businesses or is it going to be big box stores? Is there going to be a limitation? Is there anything like that that's going to be discussed? Because that will come back to us and possibly haunt us that these bucks are leaving, they're going off to Costco or Menards, and they're not staying in the community to be used. So I just want to make sure that's part of the discussion too.
I agree, good question.
A city of West Fargo business. So at this point in time, the way that the motion reads, it would include those box stores that reside in the city of West Fargo. Yes, sir.
But Mayor, the trouble with that, or that these big box offices are going to have, is we have to get a hold of them and they have to implement a program as well. So I don't know that Costco's going to go through all this for the $25 gift card. And they'll never have time, quite honestly, by the time you call them up. So I think we'll be okay on that one.
Well, with all due respect, I wouldn't want to discriminate against anybody because all of the discussion that we've had with the public has been any business within the city of West Fargo.
Okay, I'm fine with that. That would be my motion. If that's the way we want to go, I'm okay with that.
I just wanted to bring that up so it's been, we're transparent on all of this stuff. That seems to be the word of the day, transparency.
Well, Costco is in West Fargo, and we do make a lot off of them as well. So
we do.
So, John, could you clarify something for me for something you said earlier? When it comes to our timeline, would you set a special meeting? You don't mean an executive session, do you?
Nope, you're muted.
Special meeting open.
I can't hear you, John.
Oh, can you hear?
Yes, now I can.
All right. It would be a regular special meeting. It would not be an executive session.
Because there's a group of our taxpayers that are not in favor of this. And if we do an executive session, I have to vote against it. It has to be a regular meeting that we have the transparency, the word of the day, as Commissioner Olson said. So that has to be given. Our public has to have the opportunity to wade in.
And Mr. Commission President, you actually could not have an executive session for a topic like this. There's executive sessions are very limited in what you can have them for.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion?
Just one question.
Please.
So part of your discussion, the examples, are we to decide that on your last page of the thing? Are we to decide what it looks like or anything like that, or is that going to be left up to staff?
What I would like to do, because there will be 2 follow-up meetings, and originally when we looked at the timeline, we were thinking it was February and tying into the love theme, is I will go back with my staff and prepare different materials. They'll probably look similar, but just a slightly different theme, and then you'll have a chance to look at those as well as you take this out.
And the one example you've got here is the date that it's eligible to be used. I think that's very important to have on there, is the beginning and expiration date, so somebody doesn't walk in here in April and say, hey, I've still got my $25, what can I use it for? And it's like, sorry.
Yes, that's a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. I failed to mention before is that we can set this expiration date, but the system that's through the vendor is so flexible that if we see that there's still money out there, we can allow the program to run longer and set a new date. So that might be something that comes up again, or you can do a hard and fast if you'd like. But there is, as I explained to Commissioner Jurdevig earlier today too, there is a fee if a certain dollar amount isn't redeemed. The money comes back to us, but there's a 10% fee from the company to provide it back to us. And I did include that an estimate of that cost in the budget that I presented. So I wanted to clarify that too. We have the opportunity to be flexible and let it go longer if we feel it's necessary.
I have one more question for Mrs. Fisk. So the revenue source that is going to pay for totally for this is COVID relief money received by the state of North Dakota federal and the federal programs. There are no city tax dollars being applied to this. Is that
absolutely correct? None. There would be absolutely none. My recommendation would be to use the COVID relief funds that we've received from the state to utilize this program as it is COVID relief.
So the city's investment will be staff time?
Correct.
Is that about right?
Yep, that's right.
Just wanted a clarification on that. We have a motion and a second on the floor.
I have one other question, Commission President. Do you want to do your special meeting this coming Monday at 5:30 to do the first reading, or do you want to wait till your next commission meeting and then have a reading after that?
Tina, this is John. I think it would be helpful if we just waited 2 weeks so that we can get the ordinance put together and work out some of those details, and then have the. I'm just thinking about the amount of time that we have to put everything together. It'll take a couple weeks.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure. I didn't want to not get something scheduled, so thank you.
So maybe we could take, the 2 weeks, John, on this end and try to speed it up on the back end once we get organized better. I think would be a good idea. Also, Commissioner Olson, just real quick, Mayor, sorry, but you mentioned a deadline, I mean, it would not hurt to have like a 3-month deadline from now or something, so we know they wouldn't use it, say, by the end of June or something, because it won't help after that anyway. The point is to get it out now. So I'm not opposed to adding a 3-month deadline so we have a deadline on there. If you're interested in that, that would help you. Make your decision.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that it's a defined period, and I don't know if Melissa, if the vendors has an extra cost if we go beyond your budgeted, your timeline here of 1 month. So is there flexibility on that end?
There is flexibility, and there is no cost if you decide that you need to continue the program to get the dollars redeemed. Again, it's just if we do hit a deadline and we keep that deadline and there's dollars that haven't been redeemed, there's a cost for them to send the money back to us.
So I would leave my motion, Mayor, original. Let's leave the deadline out there for now, just my original motion. With everything you said, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Tina, with what our COVID expenses were from the city of Fargo and what the relief funds that we received is a net positive, is it not? The COVID.
Very much so, yes.
Very much so, okay.
Yes, yes.
So we're not kidding ourselves by saying that this is 100% COVID relief funds if in fact we had extraordinary expenses against what we were reimbursed for. All right.
Nope. To clarify, I believe so far our reimbursement has been in excess of $4 million, and our expenses have not met anywhere near to close.
I wanted the public to hear that. Thank you. I'm aware that it's over $4 million that we've been reimbursed for.
Yes.
Mr. Larson has kept me well informed of that. So, all right. Anything else? Any more discussion? We'll proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion to approve the vendor cards for 16,264 households in the city of West Fargo, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carried. Mrs. Fisk, do you have any more additional things on your city administrator's report?
I have a couple quick things. First of all, I need to get some direction from the commission as to, I believe, Mr. Dardis, President Dardis, you received this in the mail from the FM Coalition to End Homelessness.
I did.
And they want to know, and it should be in the packet, they want to know if the city wanted to participate. And for us, it would be $500 a year. And so I just wanted to know if you wanted to participate in that or not.
Commissioners, it's been in your packet. It was a request made of us. I have been to, I think, 2 meetings on this. I would encourage your support.
I would make a motion.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if somebody could explain more, if there's more information about what the $500 is specifically being used for.
I can give you a little information, or Bernie, if you want to talk about what they do there, or Melissa.
Mrs. Richard can do that.
Absolutely. I actually reached out to the executive director of the organization, Cody Schuler, and he is available right now. So I'm going to open it up and allow Cody. You can speak and describe. I also wanted to let you know that I was a previous board member for the coalition, and Malachi Peterson in our planning department currently sits on their board. So I'll hand it to Cody to provide some more comments.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Mr. Cody Schuler, one of the heroes of our community. Cody?
Thank you, Mayor. I feel that that's a little bit too much of a overstatement, but we every year reach out to members of our community to be a part of the coalition. The coalition has been a part of the metro area since 1989. We became a 501c3 in the year 2007, and that's when we hired staff and began working towards having education programming as well as shared advocacy work to work to end homelessness in our community. And a number of our other city partners have been a part of the coalition in the past, oftentimes because we've receive funding from those entities for various programs and a variety of things. And of course, when the city of Fargo had their 10-year plan to end homelessness, our staff was integral in helping the city staff, specifically the planning department, implement and execute that work, particularly in the work that then bled outside of the city of Fargo proper into West Fargo, into Moorhead and Dilworth and the wider metro. Yes, so we sent in our request, as we do oftentimes in other years, and glad to see that it brought to your attention. And I appreciate Melissa's service on the board for the last 3 years, and have appreciated the conversations that Mayor Dardis and I have had as well about looking at homelessness as a broader community issue. Homelessness is not just something that happens in downtown Fargo; it happens across our metro, and we have statistics to show that. I wasn't able to pull the school statistics for the city of West Fargo, but there is across all of our cities in our metro, school children and other families and veterans experiencing homelessness. And so as we work, we look for a partnership from our cities. Now, I will say in the past, or the way that our other communities have often participated, it's often been something like the planning department, right, or a very specific city department that has been that point of contact, and so then they engage in the coalition. And what we say is that the entire city is a member, because it's a one department, is particularly a critical department like that. And so however you as the city of West Fargo would want to participate or direct that would be at your discretion. And as the city administrator, Mrs. Fisk said, it is $500. We actually have a self-selected, it's basically a minimum of 100 and a maximum of 500, and a suggested or self-guided dues. And I believe, Commissioner George, you asked about where the dues would go. The dues help undergird our programming, particularly our education programming. Our education programming is a central part of what we do, because we believe if we're going to end homelessness, we need to be able to have all of our service providers in the community be able to, as I say, row in the same direction. They need to be working off the same material, evidence-based best practices. And so we provide continuing education for them, and our membership dues really dramatically undergird that programming to keep it incredibly low cost. Just to give an example, oftentimes our service providers, shelter workers, et cetera, it can cost $100 or more to go to a workshop. You have to drive to Minneapolis, et cetera. We're often able to bring in trainers or do our own our own training in our community with some experts we have locally. And we're able to offer those trainings as low as $15 or $25, and then also take away all the travel expenses. So it's a real benefit to our community in that way. With that, I would stand for any questions that you might have about the work that we do, and why we would see the City of West Fargo as a valuable partner in that.
Thank you, Mr. Schuler. Any questions from the commission, please?
With the dues, do we vote on that every year, or is this a one-time vote?
I believe that the bill will come annually, so it will come before the commission annually. And I would either put it on consent or under my administrative report again. And I would also ask who you would like to be the primary and alternate for this organization. I'm not sure if Melissa's still on there, if she wants planning, or Bernie, or who.
Well, first of all, we'll determine whether or not we're going to do the expenditure. So,
okay.
Commissioners, we need to address that first and foremost, as to whether or not we're going to participate in this effort. And then at that point in time, we could ask for who would like to be a part of the...
I did make a motion, Mayor.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Jurdevig seconds. It's been moved and seconded to approve an expenditure of $500 for the Homeless Coalition. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Do we have anyone that would like to step forward and be a part of this? Staff or commissioners?
Mr. President, I believe we've already transferred the membership in the board to Malachi. But of course, if Melissa or Tina has any interest, or any of the commissioners, I'm open to discussion. But we've included this in part of our...
Excellent. Malachi would be a great representative of the City of West Fargo. I would ask that his correspondence with the commission can come through me, as I am an advocate of the work that Mr. Schuler and his group is doing. So if there's anything that Malachi would like to share with me at any point in time, I'd be happy to be a liaison with the commission. So,
I will be sure to do that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. So, moving on. Thank you again, Mr. Schuler, for joining us this evening.
Thank you, and I would just invite you all, our monthly meetings that are on our website, we're doing, of course, by Zoom now, and hopefully go back to in person, are open to the general public and anyone. So any of you are welcome, or any of the general public who would like to come and participate in any meeting is welcome to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Fisk, anything else in your correspondence file?
I just I just have a couple items under my report. I just want to let everyone know that we received a report for the West Fargo Inert Landfill and Transfer Station. Bernie left it on my desk, and I have forwarded that to the Public Works Sanitation Department for completion and to send in. And remind you that your code enforcement annual report has been sent out, so if you have any questions on that, you can reach out to Tim or to, okay, now my brain just stopped. I forgot his name.
Travis?
Thank you very much. I'm like, I know the name. It's to Travis. Sorry, Travis. With questions on that. And that's all I have under my report.
Thank you. Mrs. Fisk? Are there, that's correspondence and your report both?
No, I have 3 pieces of correspondence that I emailed to you today. We have one from the Human Family for supporting the arts. We had one from Fisher House for, I believe, Bernie, you provided them with a letter that helps support them in their successful...
Fisher House is a great program for veterans in helping with housing for veterans. And I've been aware of the program, and all I did is I offered my personal support of this, and they received the funding that they needed. So it's a veterans program and a very worthy program, in my opinion. And they just sent a thank you note for that.
And the last,
but they addressed it to the mayor, so I wanted to share it with you as commissioners, so you're aware of what I did.
The last thing I have is the email that was sent to commission that was forwarded to me from Brad Schmidt with his comments on the residences and so forth. So that's all I have today.
And that's a discussion that we took place earlier today that was initiated by Commissioner George. The letter is 2 to 3 pages, and it has a list of 40-plus residents on there asking us, the commission, for reconsideration with regard to the purchase of the 5 houses. So just so everybody understands and the public knows that it is in the record that we have received that. And tonight, the commission took no action on a motion to reconsider on that. So, but there are, I would imagine we'll have additional discussions as we move forward, as the purchase agreements and all of those types of items come forward from legal and from economic development. Is there any non-agenda items that any of you commissioners would like to bring forward this evening? Are there any items that any department head and staff would like to bring forward to the commission this evening? With that, the only thing left is for adjournment. Commissioner Simmons.
Move to adjourn. Thank you.
Olson.
I second the motion.
Thank you both, gentlemen. We stand adjourned. Have a good evening.
You too.
Good evening. Thank you all.
Thank you.